The Caucasian Chalk Cycle by Bertolt Brecht. Explanation. Synopsis. Act 1. A singer introduces the story. On Easter Sunday in Nuka, a small town in the princedom of Gruznian, which is fighting a blood war against Persia, the wealthy governor George Abashvili and his beautiful vain wife Natera leave their Paris to go to church. Their only son and heir, Michael, is brought before the people for the first time. The family is greeted by Prince Kazbeki, the seemingly obscure fat prince. Simon Chachava, a soldier, and Grusha, a servant, meet and flirt. At first, all seems calm, but a military coup is underway, led by the subordinate Prince of Gruznian, who are unhappy at the way the Grand Prince is conducting the Persian War. They want to overthrow the Grand Prince and his governors. An alarm sounds from the palace, and two soldiers march the governor off in handcuffs. Fighting breaks out in the city, and the palace is thrown into chaos as servants scurry about trying to pack for the governor's family to escape. Simon and Grusha agree to marry, and he promises to return to her when the war is over in 2 weeks, maybe 3. She promises to wait for him. The governor's wife, preoccupied with trying to choose which of her numerous fancy dresses she can bear to part with, flees, obviously abandoning her child Michael. The fat prince, revealed to be a leader of the revolt, arrives with his troops bearing the governor's head on a pike. He orders his men to search for the child. Reluctant to accept responsibility for Michael, but unwilling to abandon him to a likely gruesome fate, Grusha hides the child from the soldiers and sits by him through the night. At dawn, she steals away with him. Act 2. The flight into the northern mountains. Grusha decides to flee to the home of her brother Lavrenti in the northern mountains and to wait there in safety until the war is over. Along the way, she buys milk for Michael at an exorbitant price from an old farmer whose land has been ransacked by soldiers. She tries to pretend she's an aristocrat in order to share a room at an inn with 2 high-born ladies also on the run. But her willingness to work and clerk servants' hands give her away. Forced back to the road to continue her flight, she attempts to leave Michael with a peasant couple whose farm has not yet been touched by violence. But the fat prince's men overtake her. She bashes one of them over the head and escapes with Michael. After some days, she arrives where she had to cross a dangerously rotten bridge. As the fat prince's men draw near, a desperate Grusha takes the chance, steps out onto the swaying bridge, and makes it safely to the other side with Michael. Act 3. In the northern mountains. Sick with exhaustion, Grusha arrives at her brother's farm, expecting comfort and safety. After her extraordinary journey, she receives little of either. Fearing the angry reaction of his pious wife, Aniko, to having a unwed mother in the house, Lavrenti tells Aniko that Grusha is on the way to meet her husband over the mountain. She reluctantly agrees to take Grusha and Michael in. Grusha spends a bleak winter cowering in the cold and watching Michael grow. Lavrenti fears that the truth about Grusha and the child will come out, so when spring arrives, he arranges for her to marry a dying man so that she can become a widow, giving her and Michael some degree of legitimacy. For Michael's sake, she agrees. After the wedding, however, hearing the news that the war is over and the Grand Prince has returned to power, the groom, Joseph, makes a miraculous recovery. He has been dodging the draft by pretending to be sick. Time passes, Michael continues to grow, and Grusha grudgingly becomes a wife. Eventually, Simon returns and comes to find Grusha in the mountains. As she tries to explain to him what has happened, the authorities arrive and seize Michael. Hearing Grusha tell the men that Michael is hers, Simon is devastated by her betrayal and leaves. Grusha runs after the men who are carrying away her child. Act 4. The story of the judge. The story backtracks to the day of the coup, the day Grusha took Michael while poaching in the wood. The village clerk Azdak has come across someone he believes to be a refuge. He has brought the man home and agrees to hide him from the police. Only after the man has gone does Azdak discover that it was the Grand Prince himself who escaped the clutches of the rebel princes. Ashamed of himself for helping the great butcher escape, Azdak turns himself in, expecting to be punished. And at the courthouse, he finds that the judge has been hanged and the fat prince's tank drivers are in control. Azdak is himself nearly hanged by taunting tank drivers, but they let him go laughing. The fat prince brings in his nephew to be ratified as the new judge, but the tank drivers, after testing the nephew in a mock trial in which Azdak accused the rebel princes of profiting from the Persian War, make Azdak judge instead. During 2 years of civil war, Azdak presides over legal disputes turning the law on its head, doling out tweaked justice and accepting bribes as he sees fit, while taking from the rich and giving to the poor. Finally, the unrest ends. The Grand Prince comes back. The fat prince is killed. The governor's wife returns from exile, determined to find Michael. Frightened that his behavior over the past 2 years will land him in trouble now that order is restored, Azdak promises to help Natera Abashvili get her son back. Act 5. The Chalk Circle. The story returns to Nuka, where Grusha anxiously awaits the trial that will determine who is Michael's rightful mother. Simon offers to swear that he is the child's father. The governor's wife arrives with her lawyers in town. Azdak, who has been declared an enemy of the newly restored regime, is dragged in and stripped of his judge's robe. He is about to be hanged when a messenger arrives announcing that the Grand Prince would like Azdak to remain as judge in gratitude for saving his life that Easter Sunday. Restored to power, Azdak presides over a trial in which he must judge who gets Michael, Grusha, who has risked her life to care for him, or his biological mother, Natera, who abandoned him. Hearing the arguments, Azdak learns that the late governor's estate is tied to his heir. The governor's wife has nothing unless she can convince the court to give Michael to her. Azdak invokes the ancient wisdom of the chalk circle. The child is placed in the center of the circle. Azdak declares declares that whoever is strong enough to pull him out must be the true mother. Grusha lets go, allowing the governor's wife to pull Michael out of the circle. She can't bear to hurt him. Azdak orders the women to repeat the trial. Grusha again cannot pull. Azdak judges her to be the true mother and awards the estate to the city so that the children's playground can be made out of it. The governor's wife faints. Azdak decides to hang up his judge's robe, but he first signs a decree granting Grusha a divorce from Jasper, leaving her free to marry Simon. She explained to Simon that she took Michael because she fell in love with Simon on the Easter day, so he is truly a child of love. Everyone dances. As Dark disappears, the singer explains the moral of the story. That what is here should belong to those who deserve it, the child to the motherly, so they may thrive, the wagons to the good drivers, so they are well driven, and the valley to those who water it, so it may bear fruits. Thank you.